My very first client and existing is actually Tim Mays, the owner of the Casbah. We typically work with bands that were the biggest names and are either on their way down and hitting the casinos and local fairs, and we work with bands that will be the biggest names, and we've had a lot of those. One of the first acts I worked with at the Casbah was Cake in the mid-90s, and they were actually on their way to film their first music video up in LA for their first album. And that was the first time I realized that they started at a small club. It was 2 weeks later I saw the video on MTV and couldn't believe that I was in a room full of 25 people watching them play. But bad power can destroy a show. Having a generator that's not working properly, or a sound system or electrical system that wasn't wired properly. There's tens of thousands of dollars in electrical cable and equipment that makes the sound system work at the bigger shows. So you can easily eclipse that, and one small thing wrong can ruin the whole sound system. And we've definitely had that, where we've had amplifiers, frying in racks before we could turn power off, and you're scrambling to replace that gear, hours before a show in some cases. It's been quite a long time since something like that happened, but those are the, quiet problems that the audience doesn't know about or hear, and the band or the promoter doesn't even know about. But those are the scariest things behind the scenes, are the equipment not firing up properly. Soundboards, the computer soundboards, the newest digital ones, they do have quirks, and occasionally we have ones that just won't start, and it's not like you have a few of those sitting around, so you must fix the problem. Sunday afternoon at the state fair and the soundboard won't turn on. Getting online with the manufacturer or troubleshooting yourself, learning how the equipment is working on the fly, and then all of the money is made solving that problem before anyone knows about it.
What happens if it happens during the act?
We've been fortunate enough to not have that happen, and there are very small contingency plans. A place like Del Mar will have an entire soundboard sitting backstage during the fair. It may not be the one that's the same, but it will work. So we have, at Del Mar, we typically have a dozen amplifiers on site that aren't doing anything at all in case there's a catastrophe, and a lot of redundant equipment. Del Mar is a monster.
This sounds like a very capital-intensive business. Can you tell me a little bit how much some of this equipment costs? If the cables cost that much?
Sure. Yeah. Like a microphone cable can cost between $15 and $50 depending on the quality and length. And let's just take Del Mar. There'll be 150 microphone cable on stage to accommodate some of the larger gospel festival days where there's multiple acts and excessive cable running. So you can have just a microphone cable a few $1,000s, and that's just what the audience can see. So then you get all the way up into some of the newest digital consoles are anywhere from $35 to $100 and more $1,000. So just something like the main stage of Del Mar may have $100,000 or more of consoles, plus all the interface that makes them work.
What about the speakers?
The speakers, the least expensive professional speakers out there are $2,000, and we have over 100 speakers that we spent more than $3,500 on, and there are other sound companies that have hundreds of speakers that are $8,000 and $10,000 a piece. So we're relatively small company compared to some of the national ones that will tour around with Aerosmith or U2. We think we have a lot of money, and then we go look at a large format professional touring company, and they have dozens and dozens of what we hope to own 2 or 3 of.
Does the technology change quickly where you have to get the latest speakers or amplifiers?
Not so much. It's pretty slow in sound, where lighting, it changes every year. Sound equipment, digital boards came out a dozen years ago. Almost every mid-size or larger company is completely digital, with the exception of the acts that request analog equipment. Speakers have gone from traditional trapezoidal shape to vertical hanging line arrays, and most of the mid-size and large company have completely converted to a line array now. So the quality goes up and the equipment gets a little better, and typically for a little less money for the same level of quality. But you aren't chasing your tail with sound equipment. Typically, if you make some smart choices, you can hold on to the gear. Our current line array, which is still a valid speaker that's sold brand new today, we've had for 10 years. And as long as you maintain them and upgrade the drivers and make replacements and paint the boxes, you can continue to use them for quite a long time. 10 years is really, really long. Our amplifiers, we've had for the same amount of time, and they're starting to die, so we're finding ourselves buying $2,000, $3,000, and $4,000 amplifiers to replace them, and we have 100 of one kind. So you can see it's a circle. You have to do this because you like it. I've talked to the owner of Sound Image, who is one of the largest companies in the world here in San Diego, and I remember him telling me years ago, it's never ending. He goes, it's just more and more money. You never just have a bunch of money sitting around to buy it. He goes, I borrow money today. We just have a whole different way of doing it. And he's like, it never stops. It has to be because you want to do it. It's not like sudden one day you're like, okay, we have enough equipment, we're good. I imagine in any business that's the case, but with sound equipment, the margins are very small. So you're constantly, robbing Peter to pay Paul and move along if you're going to be competitive.